down. They rush four. Plenty of time for JUN. Now squeezes, steps up in the pocket. LA can run inside the 10. Head first. He dives off the 5-yard line.
65 horsepower trap. That might pop wide open, Rats. Get this there! Is that there, Rats? Nice going, baby. Yes, sir, Rats.
Howdy ho, how are we all doing this evening? And welcome to the Wild Wild West podcast on this Wednesday. I just wanted to thank everyone who is here with us live and welcome everyone who is only able to join us after the fact. My name is Richie Richey of the MHRT Network. Directly above me, you will notice it is Captain Jack Rackham.
Yeah!
You don't say. Directly to my left, I have Alex Givens of Arrowhead Addict, and then up and diagonally is Coach Defense of Locked On Defense Podcast. So we have a pretty cool show in store for you guys this evening. We're going to be breaking down kind of a little bit of, I guess, dare I say, what's next for our respective teams in the AFC West. So we're going to start off with who we think might be traded on each of our respective teams. Coach, do you want to maybe go first?
Sure, absolutely. Well, welcome again to the Wild Wild West podcast, where the West Side is the best side. I appreciate everybody coming through. And yeah, let's get right into it, because I got a few guys that are on my list that I think that are on the chopping block for sure. Starting with Joshua Kelly. I think we talked about him a couple of weeks ago, Alex. You was asking me about him and where he sat with the roster when based on us drafting Isaiah Spiller in the mid rounds in the draft. So I think that he's a prime candidate to be traded, and I would say for sure that that's a good option for somebody that needs a secondary running back. He just didn't fit or hit with us for some reason or another. We had some production issues early on, and then he had some fumbling issues last year. So I think with the idea of Spiller being the heir apparent secondary or 1B back to Austin Eckler, I think he's going to be the one to be shopped around. Under contract, very low mileage when it comes to money that he's being offered right now, being a 4th round pick. So I think that'd be a prime candidate for somebody in need of a running back via injury or via I need a secondary coach, a secondary running back. That's going to help out my offense. So I think he's number one to be shopped around. And I would think that he may be shopped around for, say, hypothetically, a draft pick and or a wide receiver. Because I still think we should address the wide receiver room as well as from a speed perspective. We have some big play guys when it comes down to possessions and big play, 50-50 ball type of I guess you could say styles when it comes to our receivers, being Mike Williams and Keenan Allen. But I think that we really should address the idea of having a speed guy. There's going to be another element to our offense, somebody that can stretch the field, where teams can kind of play us a certain way. Because I think teams in the past have played us a certain way because they weren't really necessarily scared. And this is a testament to me being a defensive coordinator. If I know that your wide receivers can't get over top of my corners, I'm going to be more aggressive. I'm going to be more aggressive at the line of scrimmage. I'm going to play you at a 20-yard in philosophy versus I'm playing you to get over the top, of my defense. Basically, if I get too exotic with my looks. Mm-hmm. So I would say for sure to have that extra added element of having a speed receiver to be traded for, with Kelly or trading Kelly for a draft pick, that'd be optimal. If you can swindle away somebody that's looking to trade a wide receiver that's going to be a good offensive fit for us, I would say that'd be the best method. And the secondary guy I think that could be traded before the start of the season could be Jerry Tillery. Our former first-round pick interior D lineman. Based upon the scheme change that we've made, I think that he's been relegated to more of a pass rushing entity versus a run stopper. He's been really troublesome against the run. When it comes down to us being, able to stop the run at this point of attack. So I think that having a guy that's spending serious money on a guy that's mainly a pass rusher, I would say that he may want to shop him around for somebody else that maybe runs more of a 4-3 type of scheme where he may fit better. And get some capital for him, either receiver again or draft pick, to not waste the first round pick in a sense. So that's where it pretty much lies for me.
Does Tillery? Does he still have 2 years left on his contract?
No. He has
an option.
That's the thing. They denied the 5th-year option, and he's on his last year of his deal this year. So he's on his last year of his deal right now. So this will be prime time to shop him.
Yeah,
I want to address the elephant in the room, other than my big belly.
Okay.
Avatar. You think that I hate Richie Riche? I do not.
Yeah.
Richie left. It's probably a glitch up in Canada. Maybe was it the loonies? That's the money up there, right? Maybe he didn't pay all the loonies for his electric bill. I did not kick Richie Riche out. Okay, so I wanted to address that as well, and again I was going for Mundungus. I love that name, Mundungus. Okay,
right.
That's you got to be a man to have a name like Mundungus. Okay, I'll give that to you. So for best name here, it's Mundungus.
And don't forget the last name, Creevy.
Yeah. Well, I mean that's just icing on the effing cake.
Mundungus Creevy.
That sounds like a character in a slasher movie.
Yeah, I do got a question for you, Coach. Though once we get back on the topic here, off of the Mundungus, I'm sure he'll pop up again here in the comments. But what do you, if you're the Chargers, you think you're going after like an Odell or like a Will Fuller? Some of these guys that are kind of still out there in the free agency limbo. Or you think they're trying to trade for someone maybe a little younger?
I would say go younger, because I think that at this point in time where we're at roster wise, because our big money's going to have to be focused on Derwin James first and foremost.
Yeah,
so I wouldn't go after his big splash, because I see some Chargers fans out there saying DK's unhappy. Maybe we could trade for DK, but you got to realize,
then you got to make him the fattest paid receiver in the league.
Exactly, you got to pay him. Keenan Allen's got a couple years left. Mike just got his money. I would say it would be foolish to go after a guy that's going to require big money. Now, Odell could be, I guess you can say, a cheaper option because he's coming off injury. But yet again, you're not going to be able to utilize him until late October, early November at the very best.
Yeah.
So I would say that's not an option if you want somebody to come in right off and be able to be into the offense and be effective and be productive early on. So I would say a younger guy. Like I'm still, I'm still arguing them. A lot of people aren't on this train that I'm on, but I'm thinking that if you want to get a guy just for a year, then we could draft a guy next year in the draft somehow, some way. Because we get a ton of new receivers each year, so you can pick up your Christian Watsons and your Tyquan Thornton, this pure speed guys at any point. So if you want to get a 1-year rental when it comes down to a slot receiver that can really fly, I would pick up the phone and call Marquise Goodwin. He's one of the fastest receivers that's ever been, classic 4.2 guy, been very solid as long as he stayed healthy, and you're not going to ask him to do a ton because he's just going to be a deep threat guy, and I think he's the least injured all the ones like your Deshaun Jacksons, your Will Fullers, all those guys that have been off injured, they can stretch the field. I think he's been the least injured, and he's had a year off because he took a year off because of COVID. So he's fresh.
I think he signed with Seattle, though. I think I swear I just saw him pop up like
that. That had to happen. Like I've been watching the radar, so that had to happen like recently. But like in the ride home for me from work to now, it had to happen. I didn't see that one. Did it really?
I don't know. That's what I'm trying to look. I swear I saw his name because
hey, GTS, man, that means Google that stuff, and I cleaned it up. I cleaned it up, man.
Yeah. I mean, I actually even follow him on Twitter just because this off chance that he might sign.
Well, see, I think but in the line of that thinking, though, I think someone like Will Fuller is kind of a pretty appealing option as well because he'd be cheap. Because I mean, clearly he can't play a full season, but at the same time, he's not going to Houston or Miami where he's going to be expected to kind of carry the load.
Right.
You got Keenan Allen and Mike Williams there, so
that
he might have enough left in the tank.
Yeah, that leads to my point that he wouldn't be asked to do much, but he'd be a deep threat option.
Yeah.
So the idea of him getting hurt would be less. But the only problem I have with Fuller, he's more brittle than most of the rest of the guys we named. He hasn't had a full healthy season since he's been in the league. So do you want to, invest in that versus another guy? Like I said, if Goodwin's still out there, I would go with Goodwin over Fuller all day. That would be my where I put my money at. But yeah, I'm with you. Like I said, it's just you're not going to be asked to do a whole lot. Like same thing with Callahan. Like he's not going to be asked to play every single down, so he should be healthier. So a lot of guys that have injury histories, that injury tag when it comes down to them being off injured in the last few years. If you're not asked to play every single down, then the likelihood of you getting hurt is less.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Here's the problem with Callahan, though, is every time he's on the field, he is almost always the best corner on the field. Because when he is healthy, dare I say, he is elite at his position. His issue is not his skill. He's got that in just heaps and heaps and heaps and loads. The problem that he has is him staying healthy. And I think the trap that so many fall into, and I think that the Chargers may also fall into this because it's so difficult to not just simply play the best complement of players that you have, is he's just so good. You want to play him.
Yeah.
Because then you're sitting there saying, I have a healthy guy who's one of my best on the bench. And then you're knowingly putting a subpar person in his place. So I think that's always what seems to happen with Bryce.
Yeah. I think the level. What'd you say, Alex? I'm sorry, I missed the part.
So, but maybe that's why they made a priority to get a J.C. Jackson too. So you kind of have a 1A and B, and don't necessarily have to account for Bryce if he is dealing with something. Because I mean he's a corner, so obviously he's probably going to have some pulled hammies at least a few times during the year and things like that.
Right. As Alex reading my notes here, I'm looking around like make sure you didn't steal my notes because that's exactly what I was going to say.
You don't know that, but there's a mirror behind you that's it's a double bounce mirror. So you got a mirror on a mirror, and it's going right into Alex's room.
See, that's that government stuff you doing, Cap. I peeped it. You see, that's the
I
government.
got an earpiece in. Cap's just feeding me it right now.
There you go.
What's up?
but that leads to my point, and I think that where the roster is constructed, assuming health, in the majority, people aren't going to be asked to do the things they have been asked to do in the past. Because I think that they're locked into JC being number one. I think they're really high on Sunday Samuel Jr. being number two. You have Mike Davis as well, who's a outside and inside type of speed corner. And so Callahan will be utilized in mainly pass heavy downs, in my opinion, because what I think they're going to do with drafting JT Woods is do a lot of teams are kind of mimicking from what the Rams have been doing in the past and playing three safeties on the field in early downs. So when you come out 11 personnel, I'm going to line up three safeties versus three corners. So that gives me a good matchup against their tight end, and it still gives me a better run fit when it comes down to them running the ball in early down. So I think Darryl want to be in the box. I think JT and Nas will be on the back end. Your two linebackers in the middle. So you'll need Bryce for the early downs. It's just that really pass heavy third and long downs where you need good coverage is where he'll be lined up, and he'll get his time to play in the offense, or when the offense is on the field, when the defense is trying to get them off the field.
Right.
So yeah, that's pretty well what I got. I got just to recap, Rich. I think you might have missed it because you were coming in and out. I said Josh Kelly is a trade for a receiver and/or draft capital, and Jerry Tillery, who's on the last year of his deal, and we didn't exercise his fifth-year option. So I think that those two people are the main people that I would offer up his trade diary.
Yeah, I did catch it. So Trudeau was able to kill my internet and the power at my house for the last 5 minutes, but was not able to.
Did
kill
you get the Walmart job? That's what we want to know, though.
Pardon me?
Did you get the Walmart job?
They said maybe.
Oh, okay. There it is.
Maybe. So no. I know. So I mean, I'm just simply looking forward to the rollback on beer prices, man. So, Alex, what about you for the Chiefs in terms of who you think might be kind of in the trade, in the wings of being traded, or may even be surprise trades? Because I mean, I think each year there's normally a handful of teams that have shocking or surprising trades or cuts even that they attempted to trade and then just opted to cut. So who do you think kind of fits in that mold for the Chiefs?
Yeah, I mean, kind of thinking about it, I mean, the hard part is the Chiefs already had so much turnover in various position groups already that there's not really a whole lot of cap casualties or people with a pending contract that you just know are going to be gone at some point before the season's up. But I'd say looking at as a clear-cut person that's more likely than not going to be the option if they do something would probably be Derek Nandi, who's the other D tackle. He hasn't been a proven commodity playing next to Chris Jones, and I think that's kind of the big area of upgrade. Is to get someone to play next to Jones in that 4-man front and can play inside and kind of be a run stuffer. And they don't necessarily have a guy that's like that out that's not named Chris Jones. But, and kind of seeing the Aaron Donald deal this week has kind of sparked some Chiefs Nation talk of they think Chris Jones is going to be out because.
Don't say that. I am going to crack on your ass for that. There is only one nation.
It's America.
And I love all you guys, but don't even friggin' go there. It's
all right, Chiefs Kingdom.
Or
all
Kingdom.
right.
Jeez, Cap.
Well, you ain't even in the place where the nation started for you. So, I mean, everything's
our nation is worldwide. Okay, we are always in the nation.
Yeah,
we know who ate his Wheaties this morning.
Yeah. It came out fierce.
Yeah, he definitely came
I'm
out.
sorry, that's one of the things that's like one of my pet peeves.
All right, well,
I mean, not to try and correct the Chiefs guy for the team, but isn't it Chiefs Kingdom?
Yeah, Chiefs Kingdom. Yeah,
that's what I thought. All right.
Yeah, and that's why I said you got your own friggin' name. Use it.
Well, I didn't think. I kind of thought nation was just so ambiguous and kind of applicable to multiple things. It wouldn't really offend anyone. But here I am.
Yeah, so, right.
But anyways, as I was saying, I think there's been talks this week in Chiefs Kingdom about potential for Chris Jones to be on the move because he'll probably want more money than Aaron Donald, but I don't see that happening unless someone's willing to pay hand over fist in draft capital and someone close to his talent level. Chiefs are not going to do that, and we'll probably see him leave after the season if they don't work that out. But I'd say trading Derek Nandi, the other D tackle, is probably the most probable. Unless for some unforeseen reason they can't get a deal done with Orlando Brown and feel like it's better to just move him. But they've already had so much turnover this year. I don't really see him kind of having people there for sure going to be trying to move as we go into the season. Kind of the dark horse one, and this is just kind of my own personal vendetta. It's I think maybe Clyde Edwards-Helaire, if kind of an opportunity presents itself, or they think we don't necessarily need him and we like the other guys, the rookies we brought in and Ronald Jones, or if there's someone else out there, a guy at Arrowhead Addict wrote a piece earlier this week about some potential surprise cuts, and Kareem Hunt was one of them, and talked about maybe he comes back to Kansas City. And I think an issue, or not an issue, but a situation like that could come up where someone's available that they wouldn't expect to be. And Clyde's still got 2 years in a player option or team option on his deal. So I think that's someone they could move to get a few more draft picks. Nothing, I wouldn't say crazy high. It's not obviously not Tyreek Hill type of draft capital, but like a 3rd round pick and maybe a later, like a 6 or 7 or something. But just that would be kind of the dark horse move I would think would happen. But kind of all dependent on what they think they got with the guys they brought in, because there's so much kind of change of the guard with the offense.
Yeah, but isn't that a really drop of collateral? Because Edwards-Helaire was like a first, granted the end of the first round, and for you to go and get a 6 for him,
third.
Okay. I apologize. I only heard the 6, so that's not.
I mean, but it would be taking a hit, but at the same time, he hasn't necessarily lived up to a first round pick type of player. And at the time they kind of took him with a commodity. It was a commodity pick. They took whatever Mahomes said he wanted, because no one else they were looking at was there, and they didn't want to trade out. So I wouldn't call it a total loss, but I don't think that'll happen. But that's just kind of one I threw out as a potential dark horse move.
Yeah, where you were picking was effectively at the top of the second in that year anyway. So realistically speaking, he was basically a second round pick with the fifth year options, which really gave you some cost control if he actually did work out and did kind of do what you wanted him to. So it would be a drop off. But in all fairness, though, when you truly look at it kind of really objectively, when you kind of put it in those terms, most running backs then don't flip around and turn a second contract into big money. So when you then lose them, you typically don't end up with the comp picks that are at the third round anyway. So if you were to see him walk and move on, like a good majority of running backs end up with, they don't end up with that big lucrative second contract with the original team. Yeah. They typically end up with a lesser than contract on another team. So I think obtaining a third would be, dare I say, a steal for you guys if you do not think he's going to work out for your team long term. And if you can get 2 picks for him, then wow, you really kind of stole from the bank, so to speak.
I think it would be probably like a single third, but if a type of move happened, and I'd only say that because it would come with a team option. So like you said, you're giving him to someone who, one, needs a running back and can also kind of be in the driver's seat for a little portion of when you get him. But at the same time, we've seen every year it's the RB position gets just more and more devalued, and it kind of, and especially as guys get big contracts. I mean, I think the last 5 running backs that have gotten a pretty fat deal have all not panned out.
They've gotten fat.
Gurley. You look at Gurley. He went.
Well, really, the only one that's done well is Henry.
Yeah.
Henry. I mean,
he's not.
Look, you can say anything you want about him, but when he is, even in the limited time he played last year, he was just
in the league in yards and didn't play after week 8.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. I mean, he was just an animal, an animal.
Yeah.
So,
but you look at McCaffrey, the year before he got his contract, that man was like the whole offense.
All world. All world.
And then he's only played, I think, maybe 6 games in a season.
Right.
So,
right.
A lot of buyer's remorse.
Yeah.
A lot of buyer's remorse out there. But I got a question for you, Alice, real quick. Now, I can honestly see, looking at your depth chart, you got Ronald Jones and Derek Gore on your depth chart along with Edwards-Helaire, right? To me, Edwards-Helaire was drafted as more of a scat back type of running back. He wasn't, to me, ever going to be a grueling, first and second down grinding type of running back, right?
Yeah.
Could you envision, if you kept him, could you envision, maybe flipping to Ronald Jones and Derek Gore being your primary backs and using Edwards-Helaire as more of a third down guy and a pass catcher?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean that was the whole talk of why they drafted him, is because one, he was kind of similar to Josh Jacobs coming out. He wasn't used for all 4 years he was in school, so you have this a running back coming from a pretty highly touted program that doesn't have 4 years of tread on his tires. And the big thing about him was that he would be good in Andy Reid's offense as a pass catcher, but that hasn't necessarily materialized, up to this point. But I do see, and I think I've said it before, with the guys they brought in and also drafted, I mean, I see them they don't have one clear cut, this is our 1 and 2 guy. I think they're going to kind of ride the hot hand and go with the rotation. And, Reid always finds ways to sprinkle in, running backs in the passing game. And I think I think that's going to be up for the grabs between about three of them. And I don't think Edwards-Helaire really proved himself for them to kind of make an emphasis to use him in the third down passing situation like that.
Okay. And it all could be mute because we're talking about the Chiefs and running the ball. So there's always that. There's always that.
What?
Yeah, I said a Cap.
Hey. Okay, I'll just say that's things that we don't hear very often. I just wanted to make sure that
I don't know, man. I'm pretty sure Jamal Charles would put up like 200 on at least every team in this division once. So I mean, at one point they did run the ball.
Yeah. I said, how long ago was that?
Yeah, who your quarterback was that kind of leaned.
Forget.
Charles was so effective because he had to be.
Yeah.
He had Patrick Mahomes back then. So having an elite pass thrower, kind of lends to you, doing what Reed really wants to do for the ball. So,
and that's not his. I mean, he's an RPO guy, so the run's only there if the defense is aggressively playing the pass. Type of thing.
Right.
So actually, the one question I did have in terms of, you mentioned how he's not really the guy that they kind of drafted him to be, or he hasn't really lived up to that draft potential. Do you think that might be because of Andy Reid? And I'm only saying that because when you look at the Patriots, like when Josh McDaniels was their OC, he had White as his running back there, who was that kind of pass catching, fill certain and specific voids on the offense in certain plays and situational style football. Whereas the Chiefs, you guys seem to want to use guys in more unilateral and universal roles in the offensive side, and as opposed to look at situations and plug guys into certain situations to do certain things to just win their battles.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think that some of his lack of production may be because of the way he's been used, or do you just think that he maybe lacks maybe the motivation or hasn't put the time in the weight room to power through, or any kind of one of those types of excuses or reasons?
I'd say I'd say maybe they were a little ambitious in how they thought he would plug into Andy Reid's system and be able to reproduce what he did at LSU. Especially with running backs, I feel like that's the hardest position to be able to estimate how they're going to be in your scheme, because so much has to mesh for a running back to be successful. He's got to have a pretty solid offensive line that knows what they're doing and knows where they need to go and knows the scheme. And, up until last year, I'd say the Chiefs didn't necessarily have that all that well. I just think that I think that definitely played a factor, but I just say maybe having Mahomes kind of changed and how the first season went. They kind of went into the next year with sort of a change in the mindset of using the passing more as their run plays. Because that was kind of the talk of Mahomes' first year as a starter, is how the Chiefs would just throw a quick slant and get 3 yards, like how the Ravens would run a dive and get 3. And
right.
That's just kind of been the identity of the offense and how they move the ball.
Right. So, Captain, with regards to the Raiders, who do you think would kind of fit into the mold of the conversation here in terms of who's on the chopping block or trade block? I mean, I only say chopping block because a lot of the times those players that are traded in season, the plan for the team is often actually, if they don't find a trade partner, they end up getting cut. So it in many cases kind of they go together, sadly. So what are your thoughts?
Well, I appreciate that, Richie. I do want to address a couple things. First off, Jack Kenna, I did see your like how the West will fill out this year as far as what the records are. We did that a couple shows ago, but I'd like to bring that back to a little bit later on in the season. I am not ignoring you, sir. So I want to make sure that people know. Avatar, you're awesome, dude. With the Kevin McAllister. Thank God somebody at least friggin' got the joke. Yeah, there you go. I did want to address, and it's one of those things where, and it's true what you're saying. It's like, is it going to be a cut or is it going to be a trade? And a lot of I'm going to give you two names, but the second one is only I only say this if we figure out what we're doing in the position, but I'll get to him in a minute. The first one is Josh Jacobs. And the reason why I say that is a couple fold. Is first off, we drafted Zeus, and by the way, he got signed today, so at least we know that he's actually under contract, so it's there. And Josh Jacobs has not been seen on the field during any of these OTAs. So the question is he disgruntled? Did somebody piss in his Wheaties? Did he have a bad case? Did he have a bad case of the clap from all of these baby mamas he's making? Yikes. I don't know the answer to that, but I had to throw that. That was just so obvious. But he hasn't been seen on the field, so now it comes to what is going on with Josh Jacobs. So, and it's been one of those things where you really do got to say, what is going on behind the scenes that we're not knowing? And the one thing I found really particularly awesome for the Raiders doing OTAs this year is that they have the OTAs on the very far field where there's like 2 football fields in between them. There's like 3 football fields together. They're on the far field, and the reporters are on 2 fields over, and they can barely see anything. And I like that. It's not what it's more of.
McDaniels knows where people can film from, so he's got a little expertise on how to hide from a camera. I had to.
I like that. I like that.
That was a good one. That was
from the top rope. I'll give you that. That was from the top rope. That's why I'm going to give you another one of these. Anyway, but see, and it's true is that you want to make sure that you keep things as much in-house as possible. And even the beat reporters are pissed off. It's like they actually had somebody was showing a diagram of where they are and why they can the reporting out of OTAs is sketchy at best. Okay. So it's of the Belichick variety of keeping things tight to the vest. Okay. Yeah. I actually like that because the Raiders used to be an open book. And now we're actually going to be somebody where we're not going to be so obvious to what the hell is going on. So my first
that also comes from your GM as well,
right?
Remember, because you have the head coach and the GM both from that culture, so I think that really solidifies that. Yeah, so exactly. I definitely agree.
Exactly.
I agree.
They're play off each other as well.
Yeah, I agree.
So I think it could be Jacobs. And there was another question in here about will you see a trade in season? And that's why when Alex was talking about CEH, you want to make sure I had the initials right, being traded this year, I'm like, hopefully not before Jacobs, because that just ruins the market on Jacobs. If somebody wants a running back, now honestly, are you going to go with Jacobs or CEH? It's like, well, they're both. I want to say Edwards-Helaire is more oft injured than Jacobs is, but they're both kind of sketchy injury-wise. And it's because that the Raiders have used Jacobs a bit much because Gruden has had a very bad habit of just using and abusing whoever that damn running back is. That's why Cadillac Williams probably has like a replacement hip and 2 knees, and he looks like Jim Otto because he just got ran over, pun intended, in Tampa when he was using them. And they used and abused Josh Jacobs a bit much. Yep. And so I think that he might be that person that's on the block. That's why they picked up Zeus out of Georgia to take over that spot. Will it happen? I don't know. The second person that can possibly be on the block, and it probably wouldn't be until we figure out, and here's the drum roll, what's going on with our cornerback position. Because, again, I like what the Chargers have done. And I said Chargers instead of Garglers, so that's a nod to you there, Coach D. what they've done with their defensive backs. You know, you got J.C. Jackson, you got Callahan, you got a lot of these good kids. You know, Samuel Jr. You got all of these good kids back there, and you know the Raiders have got to figure out who is their 1A and 1B cornerbacks. Mullen was supposed to be that guy, but he's had surgery already, and there's already question marks about him. You got maybe Rock Yassin that can possibly do it. You got Hobbs that is being compared that maybe he's going to be on the outside this year, vice the slot corner. So there's a lot of questions amongst who's going to be playing corner. And Mullen is one of those question marks as well as to, is he upset? Is he pissed off? And again, if somebody's pissed off at an organization that is just doing a turnover, dude, at least give it a chance. Okay. I can't stand the fact that these people are getting all pissy and they haven't even had 6 months, not even 3 months in a new organization. Okay. So that's the possibles. Now, these trades that might happen, obviously, if you trade Jacobs, I'm hoping that you pick up a corner to answer that question. I'm hoping that maybe you pick up a right tackle if Carmen Brasilla is not happy with what's going on at right tackle. And that's one of those spots that is always a question mark, although they had Leatherwood playing a whole day of snaps over at right tackle. Then the next day they had the revolving, what do you call it, the stage doors in the West. That's what I call Brandon Parker. He's
saloon
like
doors.
Swing it.
The saloon doors. Yeah.
Bar doors. You know, because he's just horrible. Or I'm going to put out my Barkley here. This was terrible. He's terrible over at right. He was terrible. And he is. Okay. But there's something that's being seen by him. So there's been a big influx of guys switching positions. You don't know who those 5 guys on the offensive line are going to be for the Raiders. They're going to play their best 5, but who is that going to be? We don't know. So we'll see. Those are the guys. So again, maybe Jacobs, maybe Kenyon Drake, if he doesn't come back from his injury and somebody needs a guy that is fantastic and should have been used more until he got injured. And maybe that's why he's still on the roster, but we'll see. And again, was that the one question we were talking about, trades? We haven't gotten to the number 2 yet. I want to make sure I'm not ahead of myself.
Yeah, we're talking about who do you think we might trade away, which would likely be for draft capital at that point. And some of them may end up just being outright cuts if our teams can't trade them. So I mean that's certainly a possibility as well.
What do you think that the Raiders would get for trading a guy like Jacobs? Like what kind of draft pick?
Well, I would think at least a 3 and a 6 based upon what the views are of the panel here.
Well, he doesn't have a 5th-year option, so they're only getting a guy for 1 year who's a free agent. Whereas,
and that's Alex, that is a good question. I would say, honestly, I would say a 3rd. I would say a 3rd because, again, if you're lucky, it also depends upon who is training for him and why and how what do you call it? Not obvious. How responsive, how needy. Thank you. There's the word. How needy that team is at running back. Okay.
Yeah.
If it's like, hey, yeah, we'll trade for Jacobs because he's a guy that we want to have, or oh my God, we just lost 2 of our running backs, and we really need a productive running back. You know, hey, let's call the Bengals and see if we can get Carson Palmer off the couch and give him like a couple 1s and a 2, like a Lawrence Welk trade. You know, because the Raiders were needy at the time. Okay. Mm-hmm. So it depends on how needy that team is. But I would say get a 3 and then maybe a 4 or some collateral after that as well.
Yeah.
I
think like comparing top end draft pick between those 2 we talked about, I think you're more likely to get a higher pick with the Jacobs probably than Hilaire based off of production on the field. I just think Hilaire has a little more lucrativeness to him with his contract and where he's at right now compared to Jacobs. That's why I wanted to ask.
Yeah, and Jimmy Farrell says that we should be get a 2nd for Jacobs, which is good. That's the reach. Again, like I said, the amount of years that Edwards-Hilaire has, he has that extra year.
I mean, but to the right team, I think a team in a situation, if there's a team out there with maybe 2 second rounders and they need a running back,
no,
see it.
No.
I'm gonna bring up a good point here. Let's look back a year. Sony Michel was a former first round pick.
That's true.
What did he go for with the Rams? That's the market.
Like a 4th or 5th,
something like that. It was a low round pick for the Rams.
Yeah.
So that's going to be the market for a former first round pick being traded on the back end of his deal.
But
that's going to be
apples to oranges though, because Sony Michel was like productive for his rookie year, and then you didn't hear about him for 2, and then he was traded.
Well,
like Josh Jacobs
was there. Right. Because the same thing with Edwards Lair. We're talking about running backs here, because most people draft running backs in the 2nd and further rounds. Like we got Spiller in the 4th.
Yeah, and DZ even agrees with me, and I know he ain't a Raider fan. So, thank you, DZ.
I think you'd be a stretch to even consider a second for him, to be quite honest. I think a 3rd might even be a little bit much, because I think the challenge. I think the challenge.
Before.
Exactly. So I think the challenge with Jacobs is that he has a shown productive early stage of his career, and Captain, I think you nailed it. He was uber super productive right at the very early stages of his career, and then he was so overused that he's kind of just been on a slight decline ever since then, and he might have plateaued, but he's basically gone from way up here to kind of down here. And I think the problem is that GMs and other teams are going to look at the decline and taking off like the Raider glasses and looking at it completely objectively. I think you'd probably be looking at a 3rd and more than likely not a 4th. And I also think that the same would kind of go for a Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Yeah. Sadly for you guys, I think, again, taking off like the respective glasses and being objective about it. Simply because
trust me, I am very, very unbiased when I look at things analytically. I am an analyst, and I don't have silver and black glasses on. My glasses are quite friggin' clear, although they need to be clean.
I'm sorry, I still can't see a thing with those up to the camera.
I saw a losing record in the Raiders' future. That's what I saw.
Yeah, do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
Yes.
I think, like I said, if you get somebody that is running back needy, you can get that 3rd.
Yeah, I would say that the only caveat to that, if you can get a third, you can weasel a 3rd out of any team at this point, would be they had their run heavy offense, and their number 1 running back was lost for the season. They had high expectations. If you lose somebody like Nick Chubb, somebody like that, like you lose a guy like that I can see Dalvin Cook goes down. I can see that you being desperate in a sense and going after a guy that you need, that's going to be a catalyst or be going to catapult your offense. But if you're looking for a secondary running back and you're looking for a complimentary guy, no way you're spending anything above a 4th or 5th round pick for. No way.
Even with that, last year the Ravens lost, I think, running back 1 through 3, and I don't think they traded for anybody. They just signed Freeman off the street.
They just kept picking up guys off the YMCA and the local rec. Yeah. They just, can you run?
Got him at the YMCA.
See, I think that cat started. I'm sorry, guys. I apologize on Cat's behalf. But
look, just be happy that the Indian outfit with like the assless chap didn't get pulled out, because that was a legit possibility.
There you go.
But no, I agree. I agree with you, Captain. We saw teams last year, even when you're 100% correct. 1, 2, and 3 went down, and then we saw other teams when 1 and 2 went down. We saw other teams with 1 and 3 go down, and very few of them actually unloaded capital to try and bring in.
There you go.
The replacement. So I think that at the early stage of the season, when that happens super early and they haven't played anything, certainly possible.
Yeah.
However, I think it's going to be
unlikely.
Your number of teams is like 1 to 2.
Yeah, I'd say Atlanta.
Literally 1 to 2.
That needs a running back. A lot of them have 2 guys for that situation
already.
Like Coach said, Minnesota, but I guarantee if Dalvin Cook goes down, they're just going to ride with Madison and say,
very possible.
Because that guy usually balls out. He gets like 20 points at least twice a year in fantasy. So.
There you go. There you go.
Right. So I'm gonna jump in with the what kind of the guys I think on the Broncos that fit kind of the same vein as what you guys brought up on your teams. I'm gonna start with kind of three guys that I think are most likely to kind of be in those types of positions, and I have kind of an A and B depending on outcome here. I see either Graham Glasgow or Lloyd Cushenberry ending up on the trade block for the Broncos. Lloyd Cushenberry was our starting offensive center, still on a rookie deal, 2024 expiry on his contract, cost controlled. And I think a lot of teams that think that he may fit their scheme would be willing to take a flyer, especially since a lot of coaches at the NFL level, especially say, well, yeah, he was with them. I can do better. And I think that you're going to have at least a handful of teams that are going to be in that vein with a young guy who has still got a lot of years potentially left, hasn't really had an injury history to speak of. So, and by all accounts has proven to be extraordinarily coachable. Now, on the kind of flip side of that same coin is if Cush all of a sudden comes out and, figures out how to not let people go by him at an obscene rate. And
he's your version of Brandon Parker then.
Yes.
He's Leatherwood.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Let me go.
Shots fired.
Come here, you bastard! I'm gonna run you through, you friggin' varmint.
Hey, on the bright side, the cannon wasn't pulled out, so which is a good thing.
Yeah.
But with regards to kind of Cushenberry versus Glasgow, I think they're, in my opinion at least, I believe they're both battling for the same position. I believe they're both going after the offensive center spot. And the question is can Graham Glasgow get back on the field and start to practice? Or is Lloyd Cushenberry going to potentially run away with it? Or is our drafted rookie offensive center potentially going to really start to show kind of those stepping stones that you want to see out of young guys, and maybe start to kind of creep into that same conversation? And if that happens, I think it's almost a definite that either Graham or Cush get traded. So that's kind of what I see as the number one likely to kind of take place, because no team needs three centers, and two of them are kind of senior at this point on the roster between Cushenberry and Glasgow. So at the end of the day, I think one of them gets traded. And Graham Glasgow is perhaps even the least likely to get traded, because at least he has positional flexibility of playing both guard and center. The second one that I think is likely going to get traded is Seth Williams as wide receiver. I think we brought in a few extra wide receivers in this year's draft that fit other roles that the team needs. And I could see the Broncos, especially George Payton, he loves doing this sort of thing where a guy looks really, really good in preseason, lets him kind of showcase his talents, and then takes a guy that was either undrafted or drafted late round and almost bumps up his draft capital just because he looks good in the preseason, and he'll trade him to a team that needs them.
Yeah.
So I could see Seth Williams perhaps being in that general grouping. And because we also have guys that I think a wide receiver that our team wants to showcase that we've drafted that just we don't have enough room. And last but not least, I do wonder, and this is kind of a flyer, and this will really annoy a few people at MHRT Network, but I don't care. I don't really care. I can actually see the Broncos potentially, if they get a good enough offer, trading a guy like Draymond Jones. It's such a bit of a flyer. I know a lot of people may not expect that as a general answer, but Draymond Jones is really, he had a few really good games last year, and then he had a few games that he just kind of disappeared in. But overall, it was kind of a wash depending on kind of what you saw and what we were expecting from someone who was coming out. And I do believe he's better suited for a 4-3 rather than the 3-4. So I think that the Denver Broncos, if they get the right offer, could potentially look at him as a means at really getting good value back for it, because you could see that he has the skills. You can see that he can do the things that you'd want to do in the right defense, The question is, and I think what you're seeing out of the Denver Broncos is, we want to stick with our 3-4. Even though we want to do hybrid stuff, ultimately we want to stick to that 3-4. And I think Draymond Jones may be someone that we might be able to trade to get some capital from.
What do you think a potential deal for him would look like? Like, what do you think you're getting? You know, like we both say in third rounds for running back, but I mean, we're obviously talking about a much more premier and prime.
That's a premier position, and frankly, he has shown some premier skill sets. He really has. And now he's also shown games where he's completely fallen out, but I actually think that was largely due to scheme and some of the other personnel that were around him. So I actually think that he's a much higher value player. So he would be someone that I could easily see a second for, if not a second and, a second and fifth, a second and, something in that general range, second and sixth kind of deal as a combination. He's also the type of player that I could see us perhaps trading him and a player for, as opposed to him and a late round draft pick. Yeah. So for example, if we get a good inside linebacker who maybe is at the back end of their deal, but then trade him to the second, so like a second and then a starting caliber inside linebacker, I could see kind of a deal like that getting done perhaps for him as well. But again, I only think that it's like one of those offers that you can't refuse, like the Godfather style deals, because he is on a cost controlled contract, and he has certainly shown potential.
I like that cost controlled contract. I like that. I have to use that. That's a good one.
You're welcome.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So,
so that pretty much goes around our various teams.
Yeah.
I'd actually love to hear in the comments who you guys think on each of our respective teams may be on the trade block. I'd also love to hear everyone tell me that I'm wrong.
You're wrong!
Thank you. And if you guys have any questions about any of the players that we had, or want to kind of explore our reasonings, why we think, why we picked them, you can let us know down below. And everyone who has joined us live or is going to be joining us after the fact, if you can go and hit that like button. Hitting that like button on each of our respective channels really helps the algorithm with the video and helps us reach more fans of our respective teams and get our names out there.
And that subscribe button. Don't forget the subscribe button.
That's right. And that subscribe button.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Rich, did you mention any potential upgrades that you guys were? Because I know we kind of alluded to in our take. Did you kind of mention any upgrades that you might think that you could get in trade or?
No, I stuck with just the trades. But if we're going to delve into that as well, my upgrade positions would probably be our inside linebacker spot. It is certainly apparent to me that, based on all pressers and all available information, that Baron Browning is officially an outside linebacker. It pains me a lot to have to say that aloud, because I thought he did exceptionally well at inside linebacker last season, but it certainly appears that he has been moved kind of on the permanent basis out to the outside, which in my opinion leaves certainly a depth problem at the very least at the inside linebacker spot. Josie Jewell showed flashes of major improvement last year. However, in years past, just did not have the speed to play in the modern NFL to cover the right guys.
He's corn-fed. They don't got speed.
Yeah, he's that pure power kind of guy. Although he did start to show his instincts a lot more prior to getting hurt last season, which then made him appear to be quicker because he was able to process and react faster. Yeah. Which is really the only way that a non-athletic guy can really compensate for the lack of athleticism. Now, on the flip side, I'm going to bring up, sorry, the chat's jumping on me here, KB82, 100%. Jonas Griffith, rather, is the one guy in Broncos OTAs who has really lit it up at the inside backer spot. But then the question is, all right, that's cool. Now who? So you got those two guys, you got Jewell and you got Griffith. It's the guys that come after them that are mission critical, in my opinion. And that's a problem. And so I could totally see either depth or even starters at the inside linebacker spot being brought in as potential trades, or even when other teams start cutting guys after the June deadline, or maybe even bringing guys in after the June deadline, I could see inside backer being potentially a spot that we might try to target.
Okay. I just want to make a quick about the Rams organization.
Yeah.
They in 2 days have made some phenomenal cap moves.
Finance department's just making moves.
I mean, you basically signed 2 cornerstones, and you didn't blink. That's amazing to me. The type of manipulation they do of the salary cap. They're playing chess.
I knew Aaron Donald. Who did I miss?
They just signed Cooper Kupp. Like right when we started the show, it was announced. It's 3-year extension, so he's got 5 years, 110 million.
Okay, thank you for that. I apologize. I was driving.
Yeah. I'm just amazed at how well they manipulate the cap and have top end guys. Like guys, in the top 5 in every position they've signed long term for. And they happen to fit it all under the cap. I just don't get it.
They don't draft anybody every year, so they don't got new guys coming in to pay because they don't draft anyone.
Yeah.
No, they've really. They're not even manipulating their draft picks to expand out on their draft capital in late rounds and then picking gems in the late rounds either. They're kind of just they're nabbing guys as UDFAs that they're able to, build up and backfill depth. It's actually a rather remarkable model that they've been able to sustain for really much longer than most other teams have been able to.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. I mean, even the people they brought in on top of the guys they signed for more, got Bobby Wagner and they brought in some other people that you wouldn't think they would be in the position to do that. And yet they somehow, make it work.
They do. I mean, they slid Allen Robinson in the back door like nobody ever saw happening. And they gave him a nice contract. They got Allen Robinson, Kupp on the other side. They still have Higbee signed long term. They got a stable of running backs.
What did they sign Robinson to?
It was like, this is a good question. I want to say it's like $30 or $40 million deal, something like that. It was a lot of money. Like it wasn't scrub money. It was good money. It was way more money he's getting from the Bears offer. So he definitely opted to go with the Rams, Super Bowl champs. Why wouldn't you? Yeah. Versus the Bears. So yeah, that was easy for him.
LA, Chicago, Stafford, Fields.
There you go. Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean.
Chicks who eat a lot of brats and stuff, or bikini models. Okay, there you go.
All right, there you go. Real easy. Aaron Donald signed long term, Jalen Ramsey long term, Bobby Wagner 3-year deal. I mean, corner. We're talking every position. I just named. Every position is a top 5 in their position in the league. Yeah. Like you can rate them however you want to rate them, but
it's not the best player at the position.
Exactly. Right. They fit all that under the cap, and they pay Stafford in the offseason. They pay Stafford as well. Let's not forget that. They pay the quarterback as well. So they're playing chess checkers. I don't get it. But we need to, whoever in that financial department needs a raise.
It's that Sam's Club money. It's that Walton family money. So the Broncos about to be in the same boat.
Yeah, well, maybe.
I think that's an interesting segue into the latter part of the show here, where we're getting into some additional news. So we have Cooper Kupp's extension. We have the Denver Broncos have officially entered in and selected the finalist in the bid for the purchase of the team, and that is the Walton Group. I have to look up the other name that's part of it. However,
his kid, isn't it?
Pardon me?
I think it's like his kids.
No, it's George Lucas's wife.
Oh.
So it's
the Force.
Pardon me?
May the Force be with you.
Yes, thank you. Yeah. And so that the two of them as an ownership group have kind of joined together to purchase the Broncos. I believe the number that's being tossed around now as the winning bid was $4.65 billion.
A lot of cheddar.
That is that's lots of cheese right there.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was that's kind of that's the number that's being tossed around at the moment as to in terms of what the winning bid was. So it'll be really, really interesting to see what's
I
in store.
That. I'm glad you posted that. That's a good one. Investigate the Rams.
Hey, that's Black Thanos, man.
I had a question for you.
That is the man.
Yeah. Oh man, it's funny. I saw a tweet that speaking of the Broncos, I saw a tweet that it said the new Color Rush jerseys were leaked, and it was a Walmart smock.
I don't know how many of you follow MHRT Network, but our very own Mr. Boggins put out a custom graphic of our very new Broncos greeter, which was Rob Walton at the very entrance to the stadium with the vest on. So I highly recommend going to check out that graphic. It is super, super well done. It was hilarious.
Nice. Okay. All right. So any more OTA news in Raider Nation or Chief Kingdom before I speak?
Yeah, there you go. Better get that crap right, man.
There's not too much from the Chiefs Kingdom perspective other than kind of the continuous monitoring of when Orlando Brown's going to get an extension and when that deal's going to get done. Kind of in the same vein that the news I wanted to talk about, I'd say probably about half an hour before the show started, I saw an article with the plaintiff's attorney for all the victims in the Deshaun Watson suits going on, talking about they're going to amend to bring the Texans in as a party,
I saw that.
all of them, because kind of the New York Times. I don't know if you guys read the New York Times piece, but they did a pretty extensive dig into what Mr. Watson was doing, at these hotels, and it kind of came out that the Texans were
aiding and abetting a fugitive.
Plausible deniability on their end, because I mean, it wasn't a whole lot of extensive, assisting him, but they did give him an NDA or non-disclosure form for him to start having these masseuses fill out after a couple instances happened, and there's testimony in deposition settings from Deshaun Watson himself that he told the Texans about some of these situations that happened. So it's kind of been more facts come to light that, what we all probably already knew when this all started to come out, that every team paying a guy multi-million dollars is going to know what he's doing, but it's just going to be interesting to see how that kind of plays out now that they're kind of bringing the league in, or at least, a subsidiary, if you will, of the league into some pretty substantial legal proceedings.
Now, how is it that the Times did a better investigation than everybody else in the league? Like everybody that was vetting Deshaun Watson to trade for him, the Texans, number one, the Falcons, the Browns, the Panthers, the Seahawks, everybody that was vying for his services. How did the Times do a better investigation job than anybody else? And I would argue that the stuff that came out in the last week or so has been more damaging than anything that we've known prior to all of this.
Yeah.
So
I'd say the Times didn't do. I don't say there probably wasn't anything the New York Times found that none of these people already knew. They just shed light on it. And I think a lot of these teams knew some of the more sensitive facts to the situation, but thought, we'll get him out of Houston. We'll get a deal done. He can get these lawsuits settled. But then you kind of had stuff blow up. Deshaun Watson goes in his first interview with the Browns and says he has no regrets. He did nothing wrong. Then you got his attorney on a national news outlet saying, "Oh, by the way, there's nothing wrong, nothing illegal with happy ending at the end of a massage," And then you got this article. I think just a lot of stuff's been propounding that this kind of blown up more in people.
Did he really say happy ending at the end? Rusty said that, and that is why. That is why.
That was the last thing he said. That was
good enough to have a lawyer named Rusty.
Yeah.
No, Rusty Harden.
Yeah. He's represented a lot of high profile people, but he's good. But that was legit the last thing he said on an interview. He said, "Oh, by the way, it's not illegal unless money's exchanged for sex. So it's just a happy ending. Nothing wrong with that." Then you have
he wasn't at the Wild Orchid in Stewart, Florida, though.
It's just
tell your business, Cap.
No, that's friggin' Kraft there, Coach.
Kraft was there.
That was Kraft at the Wild Orchid.
Thank you.
Okay. And clearly the orchid is very wild because
I didn't know the name of it. I just knew it was Florida. I didn't know the name of it.
But Stewart, Florida, Wild Orchid.
Yeah, I actually have a question on that, Alex. Just given the details you had on it. So, what I found interesting is one, just call me naturally skeptical about this sort of thing, but I find it interesting that the Times chose now to finally look into something. And so that's interesting in and of itself. So there's that. Two, I question exactly their sources on those types of things, just because of some recent events. They've had some rather questionable stories that they themselves have put out, and they really ought to have retracted, but they chose not to. Or when they did retract, they put it on the back page, with the obituaries, and tried to kind of slide it under the radar for the stories that they actually got wrong. So there's kind of those things just kind of stacking against them a little bit. But that's funny. However, with regards to the accusations that are present, from a legal perspective, we have now had two different courts analyze the current cases that were, the previous cases that were there, which are basically, I think, two less now than what have been brought forward, if I'm not mistaken. And the criminal courts basically said there's not enough evidence. He cannot be indicted. This is a he said, she said at best. The short answer they basically said was just no.
Yeah.
So with that as a premise for this, looking at, this damning article and looking at the cases that have been brought forward, the standard within a courtroom, while I agree is higher, what do you think that means for these, what are effectively civil cases?
Yeah. I don't think there's going to be anything criminal to come out of this. Whether there's more facts or more suits that come in or not. From what I've seen on the grand jury and not indicting him and what they had as far as the prosecution had in terms of evidence, a lot of hearsay, which is, like you said, just word for word accounts with not a lot of physical evidence to prove that anything other than a massage happened. Which, there's two different standards. The criminal is obviously like beyond a reasonable doubt, which is a lot higher to meet in terms of what you got to have to get someone to say, yeah, this happened, and there's nothing that is out there to make me say otherwise. Whereas these civil ones is just more likely true than not. So that's the standard all these people have to meet, and frankly, probably a lot of them are out there and going for the purpose of to get some money. Obviously they went through something tragic and unfortunate if everything's found to be true, but I don't think there's anything criminally that's been done. And I mean, while his attorney is an idiot for doing that on the news and what he said, he wasn't wrong in that nothing illegal actually happened or criminal. Is it disgusting in the eyes of the public and things like of that nature? Yeah. But, he's not going to, I don't think, going to be facing any sort of, of criminal liability with any of these, regardless of what additional stuff comes out or not.
Yeah, while Kevin's busting out laughing, I'll give my take on it. Now, in the court of public opinion, in the eyes of the law, I'm not going to put my sword in the ground and say what happened because I was not in the room. Only person that knows truly what happened in any of these cases, 21 through 24 or more, because it's been alleged now there's been 66 incidents or more reported that aren't necessarily in the court system at the moment. However, I wasn't there. Only it's three people that know the real truth. The Watson, the accuser, and the Lord. That's the only people that truly know the truth about the situation. But I think what's interesting to me in this situation, because I was skeptical about this based upon the order and by which things happen. And with the Texans report coming out, kind of feeds my argument, saying that the Texans knew about Deshaun's, escapades, right? And they were covering it up as long as they knew he was in-house and he was their franchise quarterback. With the moment it got contentious and he wanted to trade, all of a sudden the wheels started to come off. So let's not put out there, let's not skirt the issue that Busby is in family friends with the owner, right?
Yeah.
So
it's like what Sharif said here,
Yeah, exactly. It's all convenient, right?
Yeah.
So that particular I'm just going to stop covering up your mess now because you went out. So all of a sudden, everything starts to, kind of trickle out in slow oozing waves.
Hey, watch that trickle out thing, man. That's a Freudian slip, man.
Captain, Coach, the other thing to think about here is, assuming I've heard correctly, I also think that the women's lawyer, if I'm not mistaken, is the same lawyer that the Texans use for their in-house counsel.
He literally lives next door to.
Yeah, I know he's friends with the owner. Yeah.
No. And I'm not just saying that. I'm almost positive that when the first kind of handful of cases there came up,
be careful with that one too. Handful.
I know. Yeah. See what happened.
Right.
When the first cases, were kind of put out into the public eye to see and were kind of brought forward to the courts and whatnot. I'm pretty sure that the information came out that the counsel that's representing those women is also the same counsel that the Texans use for their in-house counsel.
Right. Wouldn't it be conflict of interest? That's the conflict of interest. He can't be.
Yeah.
There's no way
maybe he did at one point, but he couldn't have brought those lawsuits if he also was doing
that's
that.
Conflict of interest.
He especially couldn't bring him into these lawsuits now if he was the. But he might have done it at one point.
Yeah, maybe, but I think he might have recused himself if the Texans get brought up as being character witnesses in this case, because he's a conflict of interest with he being tied to the organization. But overall, I would my biggest concern at this point is just the PR nightmare that everybody has to deal with. Like whatever the truth is, because it's going to get mired in the PR nightmare. Like, because when we're talking about football here, that's why typically why we're all gathered here today, in this congregation of podcasts.
We are gathered here today to get through this thing called life.
Right. So, I would say from a football perspective, the PR nightmare is just getting too ridiculously damaging to the point where you have to do something. And it's not going to end well for the Browns in a sense because of the investment they gave Deshaun. It's not going to end well for his character, because people are just looking at this because everything's coming out from the plaintiff's perspective, but the defendant is not saying anything. So who's the public to believe at this point? The women are saying this thing's happened. Deshaun's not saying anything. His lawyer is completely and utterly off the rails. So it just looks ugly at this point. So regardless of what the truth is, you're going to see a harsh punishment, in my opinion, come down here based upon the known facts at this moment. That's why I think it sits at right now today.
So I think this is a rather interesting tie-in to the AFC West. So we also had some other news come out. I guess it would have been just prior in and around our last show where we all spoke about the Jon Gruden trial, where Jon Gruden had basically two victories, for lack of better words, in the courtroom, where the NFL's motion to just basically throw the case out was denied. And Jon Gruden was approved to proceed to trial. And looking at what the Browns have done and what the league has not done, as well as the fact that a court has now said there's some credibility to the whole Jon Gruden thing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What do we all think? Where do we think this is going to land with Roger Goodell?
In regards to
tying in the AFC West and the Deshaun Watson, and just seeing the fact that Goodell knew about this stuff or should have known about this stuff as the commissioner. He should have investigated this well before this past year. This was ongoing and was all like this, if but nothing else, as much as you want to basically point fingers at the Browns and all these other teams that were clamoring for Watson's services. At the end of the day, why did the commissioner not step in the moment that these lawsuits were going through the court system or judicial system prior to the verdict of the criminal charges being thrown out? Why had the league not already begun well before that their investigation into these issues? Why was it only this past kind of winter/spring that the NFL decided to truly dig into these, and now they're coming to the end of their investigation? And tying all of that into the AFC West specifically, Jon Gruden's trial basically coming up rainbows and unicorns for Gruden and his case. certainly, in my opinion, does not look well or does not paint Roger Goodell in a good light when it comes to both public opinion as well as potential job security or even a contract extension.
Yeah, this is. I think what we're not privy to is really what is the telling moments in these cases, because I think the NFL is clearly privy to the inner workings and the evidence that's being presented in these cases, and as well as anybody doing independent investigation. Same thing with Gruden's situation. I think that what you present in court ultimately determines whether or not your case has merit. Same thing with Deshaun Watson's case. When they presented the criminal charges, they said they didn't have enough merit to charge him with criminal allegations. I think the same thing with Gruden's situation. Whatever they presented, and we don't know what they presented as far as emails, any type of tangible evidence. We don't know exactly what that is. So I think that really dictates why they went forward with.
Sorry, Coach, can I just jump in quickly on the Gruden case, just because I think it's pertinent to kind of maybe what you're about to say, is in the court of law, and there's someone else in our panel that can perhaps corroborate what I'm about to say. It is extremely rare for a judge to rule from the bench without saying, I will come back to you with an opinion.
Yeah.
The judge ruled from the bench in the Gruden trial and said, no, yes. And typically speaking, in cases like that, I'm speaking from the court of law perspective. I'm not speaking to what was presented or any of those types of stuff. But when the judge rules from the bench like that, it is typically because the judge is effectively turning to the side that they're ruling against. Your case that you presented was so laughable, or basically attempting to prove a point, that it just no. and obviously the judicial system in both the United States and in Canada is very proper, and they want to follow the proper process and procedure because it needs to be presented with a certain kind of air of independence and all that other kind of stuff. But to rule from the bench in any case is so rare that says a lot. Like that in and of itself, actually says something.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I mean, it's like I said, it's just the judge had to have some type of reasoning behind why he wanted the case to go forward. Like there has to be some type of preponderance of evidence to say that the case has merit. So I think whatever was presented to him, much like the Deshaun Watson case, whatever was presented to the judge, he felt like it was credible enough for him to proceed. Same thing with the Deshaun Watson thing. Whatever was presented to them was deemed as credible enough to waste, taxpayer and court time in order to proceed with a criminal case that won't likely be, end in a guilty verdict. So I think that's where the line of demarcation is when it comes to the idea of who's right and who's wrong, who goes to trial and who doesn't. Yeah.
Right, but you're talking criminal case that was thrown out in the case of Deshaun Watson, and then you're talking about the proceeding of a case for John Gruden to move towards trial. Now, the NFL has obviously vowed to appeal the Gruden verdict, and fair enough, because of course the NFL would do that because, well, they're the NFL. But my point being is these are two, in my opinion, major strikes against Roger Goodell that certainly do not paint his leadership skills in a good light.
Yeah.
And I think it's pretty difficult to argue against that when you look at the outcome of both of these scenarios.
Yeah, I don't think Gruden can do not Gruden, but Goodell can do anything right at this point.
Oh, sorry, I mean Goodell. I meant Goodell. Sorry.
Yeah. I don't think Goodell. I think he's damned if he do, damned if he does it. Like no matter what he does, some people are going to agree with him, some people are not. I think that's what the ugly position he in is as commissioner. Like he's gonna be. Have support in from some groups and certain people with the decisions he makes, and he's going to have complete and utter pushback. It's almost like being a politician. Like some people are going to lean towards your views, and some people are not. I think that's where it lands for Goodell, and that's why he gets booed at the draft every year. But but he has done some good things in the league, and some things you kind of question him. So it just depends on what your perspective is and what your point of view is, and where you stand for certain things determines whether or not Goodell's doing a good job or not. I think that's what it boils down to. But what I do like when it comes down to suspensions now going forward for players, that he has an independent committee that rules on these things. He's not the end all be all when it comes to the investigation and who gets suspended and for how long. So I do like that part.
Just from my perspective, I kind of agree with Mike Florio's take on that. And again, to kind of pull in more legalese into the conversation, Mike Florio is a former attorney in the U.S. I actually really like his wording on how he described the independent arbitrator rather within the NFL. He referred to it as kind of a kangaroo court, and I think that's an appropriate term given how the outcomes typically land. Is they exclusively land almost 100%, if not 100% of the time, in the NFL's favor. So there is, you can call it independent all you want, but at some point in impartial hearings, there's at least a handful of cases that kind of make you say, huh? Because you expected one outcome, but you got another. And what it came down to is how the cases were argued. However, in the NFL, independent arbitrations, the cases always land in the NFL's favor. So that really should make anyone question their independence and or if they truly are independent at all. Sorry, Alex, I know you were about to jump in.
You know, you won't get my argument in regards to conspiracy theories when it comes to the league. You're not going to get me to argue that against that.
That's definitely going on. Yeah,
but I would say only thing that lends to the idea that may be somewhat independent is the fact that Deshaun Watson decision has been made by now. Because I think that in the old system, he would have been suspended already.
And they really can't though, because he wasn't. They didn't proceed with criminal charges, and he's got pending lawsuits. So he technically has not done anything wrong. I mean, the only thing they can suspend him for is the conduct
detrimental. Conduct detrimental. Yeah.
But, I mean, that's not the big fish payout of what they could slap.
Hey, they got Capone on tax evasion, man. Whatever sticks. Whatever sticks.
Yeah, Ezekiel suspended without being charged either. So there's a few other people that didn't get charged criminally and still got suspended in the old system. So I would say that would lend to the idea that at least on the perception of it being different is there right now, because they're making more they're taking more time to make a ruling. Basically.
Unless they knew more suits were going to come out.
Right.
Because I mean, I think there's something to be said that the Browns knew that there's more to it than not, because why else would they keep Baker Mayfield up to this point? I mean, if they knew for a fact that Deshaun's only going to get suspended for 6 games. I mean, Baker Mayfield's gone within a week of them signing him, and they're eating whatever money they got to just to get him out the door. So I think it kind of speaks volumes for itself that he's still there, and kind of sheds light on that there was more to this than the public knew, up until yesterday, I guess.
I agree, Captain. So, question for you: Given the Browns likely knew the circumstances they were getting into, and the fact that the league seems to be all too, gung-ho on wanting to target players, do you think the Browns should suffer something for bringing him in the way that they did and providing that massive lucrative contract, which certainly would showcase to the general public that they just don't care? So do you think that the Browns as a team should perhaps have some form of punishment from the league for doing what they did?
First off, I got to give the I can't remember what this one is, the Jesus from Dogma. I got to give a better smile on it, because that just says it all. It's like cool Jesus or thumbs up Jesus.
Yeah.
But yeah, love that. And the answer to that is because first off, and I hope I got this guy's name right, Jimmy Haslam.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay, Jimmy Haslam is a schmuck with a capital SCHMUCK. If you ever needed to know how to spell schmuck.
You put the uck in schmuck? Is that what you're trying to say?
Didn't he own Traveling J or something? He owns big truck stops, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's a schmuck. And a putz. So I'm gonna drop 2 Yiddish bombs on you right there. He's a schmuck and a putz, which by the way is the same body part. Okay. If you don't know what it is, get with me offhand. And by the way, leave me a little bit of time. I got one personal thing I want to grab at the end of the show for personal wonderfulness. But Jimmy Haslam is a schmuck, and the fact that he did this, and you can't tell me, there is nobody in the world that can tell me that he did not know.
No, there's no way that a team signs a guy to a fully guaranteed contract of that magnitude without the owner coming into the room and saying, "I approve."
Exactly.
True.
Full stop. Period. Full stop. Period.
He had so many people do the investigation that it made the Watergate committee look like a kangaroo court. Okay, if you guys don't know what I know, Alex is like Watergate. I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
Okay,
it's from Forrest Gump.
I know
they teach that in school.
Yeah. Okay. They do teach. I am not a crook. Okay, there you go. Here, I'll do it again, Alex. I am not a crook. Anyway, yeah, and he needs to have his balls put to the fire. Okay, and the thing is that they've gotten after coaches. They've had the Saints coaches gone for a year. They've got rid of Richardson. Okay, for other things, and that also goes into the fact that they need to get rid of all of these other people for the investigation. But if you're gonna do something, you got to do something to Haslam, because he's a schmuck and a putz, and he knew. And the worst thing is that everybody in the NFL hates him because he had the audacity and the gall to give this guy a fully guaranteed contract for what, $230? $230. And it's not like the people on South Park. Yeah, he wanted $250. No, he got $230. Okay. Yeah, you just wanted $250. No, we got $230 though, which is just as bad.
That buys a lot of massage Denver. That buys a lot of massage oil. I'm just gonna say that.
I was gonna say I'm dropping all these references. South Park and Watergate.
Yeah, those guys are from Denver. Thank you.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, there you go. $250. Well, he almost got $250, but the point is that they need to grill him. The only bad thing is that the Browns are such an inept organization that fans around the league don't want them to get that punishment because they want them to continue to fall all over themselves and how screwed up they are. So it might be that, Goodell, who will probably, he's going to get fried eventually. And I say eventually, he's going to get fried. Haslam should be fried. Watson is probably what I think is going to happen, especially with the way Rusty is. Well, it ain't illegal to get like a happy ending. In fact, I'm having one right now. You don't see this at the, and just it's because he's a schmuck as well. But something bad will happen, and I think that what's going to happen is they're going to do something bad to Haslam, and I think Watson's going to be gone for the year. He's probably going to go for only 6, but because of the stupid ineptitude of everybody involved, they're probably going to say, you know what? You already gone a year and being paid. Now you're going to be gone a year and you ain't going to get no $250.
Well, they structured this contract to have him on $1 million in base salary, and the guaranteed money is a signing bonus, so he gets that money regardless.
But he ain't going to get the rest
unless
of it.
they can void his contract with these additional suits.
Yeah, with what is it like the lady said in Porky's here? Here's another one. Turpitude, moral turpitude. There you go. There's another big. I'm throwing them out there today, baby. Keep up with me, coach. Keep up with me, baby.
You're all over the place.
You really are.
I'm throwing out moral turpitude and Watergate and
everything.
I'm all over it today.
High fire.
I didn't mean to.
Man, this is pinball right here, guys.
It really is, baby.
That's been on film.
But no, he needs to do that, and he needs to be fried, and we'll see that.
I'll pose a general question. I'm just going to throw a bomb into the chat real quick. Do you think that the Browns went for this particular move because they were so desperate for a quarterback because they've got the quarterback position wrong for 40 years. Do you think they did this for the simple fact that I don't care that he has all these pending things, as long as he plays football for us at some point, because we've got the quarterback morbidly wrong for so long that they just went all in and didn't care what his transgressions were? Do you feel like that was why they did it?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think it was there's a 50-50 shot they either thought, one, he's only going to get suspended for like maybe 6 games, and with what they knew, or they did not research as much as they represented and do their due diligence and just said, F it, it's Deshaun Watson, it's not Baker Mayfield, do whatever we got to do to get him and sign him, do whatever he wants. It's one of those two, but they most definitely made that move because they looked at their roster and said, we're one quarterback away from, being in the discussion of the rest of the teams that are picked to win the AFC every year. And so they definitely have blinders on.
I think we saw exactly what the Browns were thinking based on the fact that they kept Baker Mayfield.
Yeah.
Look at the structure of Deshaun Watson's contract, and then look at the fact that they kept Baker Mayfield.
Last year.
I really think that the collective group of the 4 of us were all thinking probably the exact same thing. As soon as the Deshaun Watson contract came in at that massive dollar value that it did, we all expected Mayfield to be traded like the next day.
So,
right?
Yeah,
I think in normal circumstances, that guy's traded maybe even the same day they sign Watson, let alone the next day. And then all of a sudden, a week, a month, and then you're saying, okay, they know something I don't. And lo and behold, you also then get the details of the Watson contract, and it's like, no, we gave him guaranteed, but then we gave him like a $1 million first year signing.
Checking in savings.
Yeah, so they basically
my savings.
So the Browns basically said, NFL, we believe that you're going to suspend him for the year. Don't worry, we got our previous guy from last year on our roster that we're basically going to screw, and then kick him to the curb. And then next year, after you suspend Watson for the full year, just because you feel like it, that then we'll kick Mayfield out the door and then we'll bring in Watson.
True.
Like
he's owed $18 million.
And the NFL, I think at this point here, I honestly think that the NFL at this point here, if they're truly wanting to kind of step up and say that we do not want our young men in the league to treat women this way, I truly believe that they need to take a stance with the Watson or the Browns owner in this respect and say, all right, Haslam, you want to do that? We are fining you $80 million.
That's a lot.
Or
make it worthwhile. Make it worthwhile.
You have to basically put it to a point where it's like, oh, and you need to make every other owner at the NFL level say that the NFL has finally taken a stance and that behavior is unacceptable.
Yeah. I think
if they do that, they better do something to old boy in DC.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
No, I actually think that he should be suffering similar consequences.
I
completely agree.
Yeah, I think it's the thing.
Like, let's be real. Like, I have a young daughter. The stuff that I've seen come out of the Commanders, and I'm using that in air quotes because that wasn't the name at the time, but the stuff that came out of the Commanders organization was appalling.
Oh yeah,
appalling.
Absolutely.
And I think, as I've said the last show when we kind of covered that information in that NFL news, the sad fact and truth of that particular story was the fact that the actual major issue that happened out of that organization was the mistreatment and exploitation of the cheerleaders. And it was a footer, not the main story. Ultimately, in my opinion, all the other stuff, awful, but the main story should have been the exploitation of the cheerleaders, because that was absolutely unacceptable and appalling behavior. And the fact that you end up exchanging photos with other members, both internal and external within your organization, is just, as a father, unacceptable.
Oh yeah. I have a young daughter as well, so I definitely
unacceptable. Absolutely unacceptable.
Absolutely, I definitely on board with you right there. And what bothers me about this situation again, and to your point, and I don't want it to get lost, is the fact that was a footnote story versus the main story. That should have been
right. No, that's what I'm saying.
The ground zero issue, the root and the cusp and the genesis of the issue should have been that, and it should not have been anything else. But that was the harassment of the people and the cheerleaders.
Right. In my opinion, the cheerleaders should have been the main story. And then the harassment and inappropriate behavior within the organization should have been the secondary story. The problem is that the treatment of the employees and whatnot was the primary, and way down the line as like a matter of fact mention was the cheerleaders.
Right. They made more story about
yeah, exactly. And it was just like, we have to mention it because we're obligated to. And that was actually what really bothered me, because to me, cheerleaders in football is they match, they go together, and that's like the classic apple pie within like the American culture, right? That's like they just got to go together. But at the same time, those women need to be treated with the appropriate respect within each of their respective organizations that they deserve. And the nonsense that we saw come out of the Commanders at the time was just appalling behavior, things that the NFL should never have stood for. And to me, it was a softball for the NFL that they just basically kind of threw to the side and ignored, because that was a real opportunity for Roger Goodell. And I'm going to go back to Roger Goodell here. That was a real opportunity for Roger Goodell to kind of take a stance and truly show that the NFL cares with all of their messaging that they've had to date. And it just fell by the wayside. And more and more and more, there are more female fans of the NFL. And I think it's important that the NFL showcase and show that out, that part of the fan base matters.
It should.
Yeah.
And it should. I'm the one that getting heated about it, but at the end of the day, there should be a larger group of the fan base that should be heated about it.
Oh yeah. Like I spoke at length about this topic on several of my podcasts. So I'm right there with you, Rich. I definitely get it. It's one of those things. Again, I mean, just and the society has a problem with this in general, where the root of the issue and the genesis of the issue is never the main story. It's about the person involved, or it's about the money involved. Because I would argue that the Commander's story about the money and the exploitation that SEC brought up, and I guess you could say the air quote hiding of money from the league, was more of a story and got more press than the allegations of harassment and abuse. So, if it ain't about money or if it ain't just about money, nobody cares. Right. I think that's the issue, and that's the problem a lot of people have in this situation and the society as a whole. They don't focus on the root of the issue, because if you don't have the root of the issue, you don't have the issue at all. But people don't
exactly 100%.
You don't have an issue at all.
Guys, we have again run long, and I want to make sure that we got to throw over to Captain, because he had that one thing that he wanted to speak about at the end. So guys, before we fade out, I want to go ahead and throw it over to Captain. Captain, you have something to say? Let's go ahead and throw it out there for everyone.
I'm gonna be blatantly, and a lot of people, and I don't do this very often, because I don't toot my own horn. I'm more along the lines of I like to toot and say things for other people, but I just put something up in the chat as well. Brent Musburger is no longer the play-by-play person for the Vegas Raiders. And I'm saying this, I'm not saying it facetiously. This is not a joke. This is something that I am saying that's true. And I know I have fun here, but there is not a job that is more attuned to what my wants and desires that I've always had a hankering for, is to be the play-by-play announcer for the Las Vegas Raiders. And I came up with my friend today with 2 hashtags, and I want everybody that's here on Twitter and it's on YouTube to start using these. In fact, I'm going to start using them myself. This is your new play-by-play person, okay? I have broadcast experience. I've been here on YouTube and Facebook and all those other things. I do sports. I've done broadcasting, and I've done play-by-play, and I've even announced football games, even as sidelight. It's not what I do right now, but there is not a job out there that I wouldn't love to do. And I ask for everybody here, everybody, Broncos fans, Chargers fans, Chiefs fans. I want to make sure I got everybody. And of course, Raider Nation. I ask you for your help and your support. I know how to do play-by-play. I really do. I've gone to school. Okay. I am a person that knows how to do analysis and study. And I've briefed when I've been in the military as well as in a civilian. I've briefed audience of generals and admirals. I know how to get up in front of people. And like I said, folks, I don't have a problem with being introverted. And I will be that person that would be the best of a non-professional broadcaster to be brought in. I ask you for your support. I mean this wholeheartedly. Hashtag Captain Jack play-by-play. Hashtag play with the captain. Let Captain Jack be out there as a valued, viable candidate to be the new play-by-play announcer for the Las Vegas Raiders. I ask you for your support, and I thank you. I mean that wholeheartedly.
All right, Cap. So I'm going to say this in a pure joking fashion because I definitely hope that you get it, and we definitely will support you on Twitter. But does that mean if you do get it that you're going to leave us? Because if that's not a deal.
Yeah,
that's
the only deal breaker on this panel is that you won't have me on anymore. But trust me, I'll come in for guest appearances and have no problem at all. But
unless you take us all with you, then that's a whole other ballgame. Yeah. If you take us all with you, then we
can just need a sidekick. I can throw my name in the hat on that.
There you go. Right. Put our name in the hat as well. And we're a group. We're a package. Yeah, we're a package deal.
So those of you in the silver and black, especially, you need to vote and vie for Captain Jack. See how that rhymed? And that's an important thing to make sure you get his name out there. Go ahead and use those hashtags. Go ahead and tweet at the appropriate organizations to try and help our one and only Captain Jack Rackham to get to the play-by-play announcer for the Las Vegas Raiders. And go ahead on Twitter and go ahead and try to have Captain Jack and share those tweets with the rest of Raider Nation. And man, I mean, and the Wild Wild West group here should have no problem having Captain Jack announcing those games, because in terms of those as part of Raider Nation, he is at least the least biased out of the group. So you should want that as the announcers for the Las Vegas Raiders game, because man, the only thing that I think we might take issue with is each of our respective teams being called names on national TV, but I can get over that myself. Aside from that, guys, I did want to thank everyone for joining us today on the Wild Wild West podcast. We've had a blast with you today. I'd like any and all comments to be listed below in each of the respective videos in which you're catching us on today. Like and subscribe to all of our respective YouTube channels. There are links below in the description of each of the videos in which you are watching. Please go ahead and click through those. It really helps our videos and our channels get up in the rankings. And if any of you have any topic suggestions for the show that you would really like for us to cover, you can go ahead and reach out either in the comments or catch each and every one of us on Twitter. Alex's Twitter handle is right there below. The real Alex Givens. I think you missed the whole first name deal, but that's fine. We'll forgive you. Captain Jack Rackham, you can find him on Twitter. Coach Defense, and of course, I am Richie of MHRT Network. I'd like to thank each and every one of you for joining us tonight, and we will see you next Wednesday.
Yeah!